The following content is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. No edits, no filters, just the raw truth, straight from inside the courtroom. New York, June 3rd, 2025. The federal courtroom was tense. As reporters shuffled papers and attorneys reviewed notes, the prosecution called their next witness, Eddie Garcia, a former hotel security guard. Soft-spoken and visibly uneasy, Garcia stepped onto the stand and began what would become one of the most pivotal testimonies of the trial against Sean Diddy Combs. At the heart of his testimony was a surveillance video, one that allegedly captured Diddy physically assaulting Cassandra Cassie Ventura in the elevator lobby of the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles on March 5, 2016. But it wasn't just about the video itself. It was about how it disappeared and how much it cost to make it vanish. Garcia, who was only 24 years old at the time and making $10.50 an hour, testified under immunity. He recounted receiving multiple phone calls from Christina Kuram, Diddy's longtime assistant, asking about the incident and urgently requesting access to the footage. Then, Garcia said, she passed the phone to Diddy himself. "Do you know who I am?" Garcia recalled Diddy saying. The music mogul, according to Garcia, sounded nervous, panicked even. "That video could ruin me." When Garcia explained he didn't have direct access to the hotel's video server, Diddy allegedly offered to take care of him. Garcia interpreted this to mean money. Garcia's supervisor, Bill Madano, agreed to retrieve the video for a price, $50,000. What followed was a covert transaction. Garcia testified that after work, he met Diddy and Christina at a high-rise building. Diddy was accompanied by a security guard. Garcia handed over a flash drive containing the video. In return, he received a non-disclosure agreement, one that warned of a $1 million penalty for breaking it, and, soon after, a paper bag stuffed with $100,000 in cash. A money-counting machine confirmed the amount. Diddy reportedly warned him, "Don't make any big purchases." Garcia said he believed the warning was meant to help him avoid detection. He used the money to buy a used car. The rest was split. $50,000 went to Madano and $20,000 to another guard, Henry Elias. But Garcia didn't report the cash to the IRS. He deleted messages. He didn't tell the hotel. He didn't tell police. Not until years later, when the footage leaked to media outlets and federal investigators came knocking. The surveillance video, now public, showed Cassie crouched on the ground while Diddy hovered above her. Though the footage had already gone viral, prosecutors used Garcia's testimony to show how far Diddy allegedly went to suppress it and protect himself. Prosecutors argue that this was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of criminal behavior. The $100,000 payment, they say, wasn't a generous tip or a token of regret. It was a bribe, an attempt to conceal evidence and obstruct justice. The defense, meanwhile, claims the payment was voluntary, that Diddy was trying to protect both himself and Cassie from public embarrassment, not criminal prosecution. They argue that Cassie didn't want police involvement and that no laws were broken during the exchange. But Garcia's detailed account complicates that narrative. His emails to his superiors about Mr. Combs requesting a meeting, his extended work hours the night of the exchange, and his recollection of phone calls and meetings all lined up with evidence already presented. Adding to the day's drama, a woman known among courtroom attendees as the MTA lady caused a scene and was forcibly removed before testimony began. She had reportedly been warned in previous days and was ultimately banned from the courtroom. Separately, a blogger was also barred from attending after revealing the real name of a protected witness, referred to only as Mia, in violation of court orders. By the end of the day, one thing was clear. The prosecution had taken a major step forward in proving one of the two predicate crimes required for the racketeering charge, bribery. If they succeed in connecting this to a broader pattern involving coercion, sexual exploitation, and financial manipulation, the racketeering case may hold. Tomorrow's witness? A former CFO with intimate knowledge of Diddy's financial empire, and possibly of how that empire was used. As the court reconvened after Eddie Garcia's explosive bribery testimony, prosecutors shifted gears, from hotel surveillance to financial surveillance. Their next witness, Derek Ferguson, former chief financial officer for Bad Boy Entertainment and a longtime executive within Sean Diddy Combs' business empire. Ferguson, who worked for Combs from 1998 to 2017, held multiple top-level positions, including Chief Financial Officer of Bad Boy Entertainment, Chief Operating Officer at Revolt TV, and Chief Growth Officer across Combs Enterprises. His testimony offered a rare window into the inner workings of Combs' financial machinery, a sprawling network of brands, bank accounts, and internal transfers. Under questioning by Assistant U.S. Attorney Mary Slavic, Ferguson verified his close professional relationship with Combs, stating that while he eventually reported to Combs less frequently, the artist remained the ultimate decision-maker. Ferguson also confirmed that most of the financial entities, including Janice Combs Music LLC and Coles Enterprises, were either fully or majority-owned by Combs. Prosecutors presented bank documents tied to these entities, including account openings and authorized signatures that featured both Combs and Ferguson. Of particular interest were statements from December 2011 showing millions of dollars moving in and out of a specific Alpine, New Jersey property account. One transaction raised eyebrows. A $20,000 outgoing wire to Cassandra Ventura, Cassie, dated December 14, 2011. 4 days earlier, her father, Roderick Ventura, had wired in the exact same amount. This caught attention because it aligned with previous testimony from Cassie's mother, who said the family had transferred funds to prevent the release of sexually explicit footage allegedly used to control Cassie. Another December 2011 transaction involved a $20,000 refund to Charter Oak Grove, further suggesting a pattern of sending and returning large sums around sensitive periods. Although Ferguson denied knowledge of the explicit purpose of these transfers, he admitted under oath that Combs' businesses routinely moved large sums internally, including petty cash disbursements, appearance payments, and cash advance programs. When asked if he was aware of Combs keeping large amounts of cash on hand, Ferguson replied he was not, a response that prosecutors seemed to challenge with earlier testimonies about bribes and unreported transactions. To strengthen their racketeering case, prosecutors need to show that Combs not only committed multiple crimes, such as bribery and coercion, but did so as part of a coordinated enterprise, leveraging his businesses to further the scheme. Ferguson's testimony, combined with financial records, appears to build that argument block by block, but the defense quickly sought to counter. During cross-examination, attorney Mark Agnifilo portrayed Ferguson as a high-level executive who never saw any criminal activity. "You never saw Mr. Combs commit a crime, correct?" "No," Ferguson replied. "No threats?" "No acts of violence?" "No," he confirmed. "Did you ever witness prostitution or trafficking of any kind?" "I did not." Ferguson also confirmed that he remained in friendly contact with Combs until as recently as September 16, 2024, when Combs allegedly texted him asking for advice. Prosecutors hinted this could be interpreted as witness contact or potential tampering, particularly since the text came shortly before Combs' arrest. When asked how he currently felt about Combs, Ferguson hesitated for a long moment before saying, "I don't know how to answer that." That silence, according to courtroom analysts, may speak volumes. To support their broader narrative, prosecutors introduced organizational charts from Combs Enterprises and Revolt Films, highlighting the presence of individuals previously mentioned in testimonies, including Christina Kuram, the assistant allegedly involved in the video cover-up, and Mia, a protected witness said to be a victim of sexual abuse while working under Combs' media entities. While Ferguson testified that he rarely dealt with Kuram or Mia directly, prosecutors suggested that the corporate structure enabled a system where illegal activity could occur under a veil of legitimate business operations. He didn't need to see it happening, one legal analyst noted. He helped create the infrastructure that allowed it to. The defense, however, emphasized the checks and balances of business partnerships, suggesting Combs couldn't have used company resources for personal or illicit ends without raising red flags. They argued that NDAs, cash transactions, and internal transfers were standard in celebrity circles, not evidence of crime. Still, the prosecution believes otherwise. From a bribed hotel guard to encrypted money transfers, they argue, the financial trail shows more than just celebrity eccentricity. It shows intent, control, and concealment. As Ferguson stepped down from the stand, the court braced for what's next. The testimony of Jane Doe, another protected witness who may bring emotional weight and possibly more graphic allegations to an already incendiary case. Day 14 of the federal trial against Sean Diddy Combs began with heavy security and even heavier anticipation. The witness everyone had been warned not to identify, not to photograph, and not to mention outside of her court-sanctioned pseudonym simply took the stand as Jane Doe. But behind the alias was a former executive assistant to Combs. And what she had to say would take the courtroom into the darkest territory yet. According to prosecutors, Jane Doe is victim number 4 in their racketeering case. She worked for Combs between 2014 and 2017, during which she claims to have endured emotional manipulation, excessive work hours, physical abuse, and repeated acts of sexual coercion. Her identity was protected under federal order, and screens were set up in the courtroom to shield her face from public view. Speaking in a steady but quiet voice, Jane Doe began by describing the job she was hired to do. Manage Combs' schedule, coordinate logistics, handle confidential errands, and eventually accompany him to both domestic and international events. But over time, she alleged, the boundaries of her job became confused and then abusive. I was expected to be available 24/7, she testified. That included late-night calls, demands to procure specific people for parties, and eventually, involvement in things I didn't sign up for. Though the defense objected to certain language in her testimony, Judge Walton allowed Jane to continue under the argument that it helped establish a pattern of coercive control, a key component in the racketeering charge. According to her testimony, Jane was often forced to accompany Combs to what he referred to as freak-offs, described in previous testimonies as exclusive, invitation-only parties where sexual activity was expected, recorded, and, in some cases, allegedly used as leverage. Jane described being grabbed, verbally degraded, and threatened if she didn't comply with Combs' demands. In one instance, she said she tried to resign after a particularly violent confrontation, but Combs responded by sending a group of his security staff to her apartment to retrieve confidential materials. I didn't have anything to hide, she said, but the message was clear. I wasn't allowed to leave on my terms. Prosecutors also presented text messages and internal emails from Combs Enterprises that appeared to support Jane's timeline and claims. Some messages included directives from Christina Kuram, again named as a facilitator, instructing Jane to stay close to Puff and handle the mood swings. One chilling message from Combs allegedly read, "Loyalty is silence. Remember that." The defense attempted to paint Jane as an embittered former employee with an axe to grind. During cross-examination, defense attorney Brian Steele questioned the timing of her coming forward and pressed her on why she didn't go to the police sooner. "Because I knew no one would believe me," Jane replied. "You don't go up against someone like him unless you're ready to disappear." As the questioning continued, Jane remained composed but visibly shaken. The court went into recess twice due to emotional breaks, not from the witness, but from jury members showing signs of distress. Jane also claimed she was coerced into writing birthday messages and social media posts to maintain the illusion of a positive relationship with Combs, a detail that echoes the prosecution's earlier request to introduce Combs's jailhouse phone calls, in which he allegedly coordinated public messaging through former employees and family members. Security around the courtroom was intensified throughout the day due to what the marshals called heightened credible threats toward witnesses. Meanwhile, courtroom officials confirmed that a second individual had been permanently banned from court after attempting to record parts of Jane Doe's testimony and leaking pseudonym information on social media. The prosecution ended their direct with a stark reminder to the jury. This isn't about fame. This isn't about revenge. It's about control and what powerful men do to keep it. Tomorrow, the defense is expected to begin their full cross-examination of Jane Doe, while federal agents prepare to present forensic evidence tying Combs' digital communications to multiple coordination efforts aimed at silencing victims. As the trial against Sean Diddy Combs unfolds like a carefully constructed puzzle, each witness and exhibit offers another piece of the image prosecutors are trying to complete. That of a man at the center of a long-standing, controlled, and abusive criminal enterprise. On day 15, that image began to sharpen further as the government turned its attention to a woman who hasn't yet testified, but whose digital footprint may speak louder than words. Christina Kuram, Combs' longtime personal assistant and fixer. Though she has yet to take the stand, prosecutors introduced official court stipulations confirming that Homeland Security investigators had seized Kuram's cell phone. The jury was shown exhibits that outlined the results of the extraction. 24 saved contacts tied to key players in the case, including entries labeled Eddie My Angel, Eddie Intercontinental Hotel, Bill Security, and Cassie NYC. This seizure, according to prosecutors, is not just another procedural checkpoint. It's potentially explosive. Kuram has been mentioned in nearly every major testimony so far. As the person who contacted Eddie Garcia after the 2016 hotel assault, the woman who allegedly delivered messages and instructions from Combs to various staff members, and the one who arranged meetings, phone calls, and cleanups behind the scenes. She was his gatekeeper, said one courtroom observer. If Diddy needed something buried, redirected, or massaged, it's likely Christina knew. Though Kuram hasn't been charged with any crime, the prosecution's tone has shifted. Early in the trial, she was referenced almost passively. Now, her name appears repeatedly on documents, in emails, and within the contents of seized devices. In one internal memo dated March 6, 2016, the day after the Cassie video incident, Kuram is seen texting a hotel contact. "Everything good with the footage?" Puff's asking, says it's urgent. Another saved voicemail reportedly includes her instructing a hotel staffer to clear the lobby timestamp. That staffer has not yet been identified. In court, the introduction of these materials wasn't accompanied by live testimony, but by a stipulation, a legal agreement between prosecution and defense acknowledging that the seizure and data extraction occurred. The jury was instructed to consider the stipulation as fact, and to weigh the contacts and context presented. The timing of these revelations appears strategic. With the jury still absorbing the emotional testimony of Jane Doe, prosecutors are reinforcing the idea that this wasn't a solo operation. It was orchestrated, assisted, and maintained by a team. Defense attorneys, meanwhile, objected to the relevance of the contact list. "A name in a phone doesn't prove guilt," said defense counsel Brian Steele. "It proves proximity, not conspiracy." He argued that Khurram's role as an assistant naturally required her to coordinate with staff across Diddy's various business ventures and personal projects. Still, the prosecution pressed on. They revealed a document linking Khurram directly to an NDA distribution log, suggesting that she may have been the point person for multiple confidentiality agreements signed by staff members following sensitive events. These included the 2016 Cassie incident, alleged private parties involving outside guests, a 2014 non-disclosure form signed by Mia, the same pseudonymous witness whose real name was recently leaked online. This last leak became its own legal flashpoint. Prosecutors disclosed that Khurram's name appeared in private messages exchanged on a now-banned Twitter account that illegally revealed Mia's identity following courtroom exhibits showing her blurred image. While the government stopped short of accusing Khurram directly, they suggested a possible chain of internal leakage. To prevent further damage, the judge approved the prosecution's request to withhold any visual exhibits during Jane Doe No. 2's upcoming testimony, scheduled for next week. Instead, jurors will receive redacted materials privately, and the public will only be allowed access after court approval. The jury is beginning to see a pattern: footage deleted, NDAs signed, identities concealed, and assistants like Christina Khurram operating at the center of it all. Whether Khurram eventually takes the stand, willingly or under subpoena, remains to be seen. As the trial continues, the government's strategy is becoming clear: pull back the curtain, show the machinery, and then ask the jury to decide who was driving it.
After a harrowing day of testimony from Jane Doe, the courtroom returned to a state of muted intensity. But this time, the questions were coming from the other side of the aisle. Defense attorney Brian Steele, known for his calm but methodical style, rose slowly and approached the podium. It was time to cross-examine the prosecution's most emotionally powerful witness to date. The goal was clear: to cast doubt, question motives, and expose possible inconsistencies in Jane Doe's account without appearing aggressive. A delicate balancing act in a high-profile case already flooded with emotion, media attention, and cultural weight. From the outset, Steele's questions were precise. He asked Jane to confirm her employment dates, job duties, and chain of command. Then he zeroed in on one core issue: why she stayed. "You say you experienced emotional and physical abuse," he said. "Yet you remained employed for nearly 3 years. Why?" Jane's answer was firm. "Because I was afraid," she said. "Because I thought if I left without permission something would happen. Not just to me, but to my family." Steele pressed harder. He asked whether Jane had signed any complaints, filed any HR grievances, or spoken to law enforcement during her time with Combs Enterprises. "No," she said, "and I'm not proud of that. But when someone controls your income, your image, your access to housing, your whole sense of safety, it's not as easy as walking away." At several points, Steele referred to social media posts Jane had made in the years following her departure. Birthday wishes to Combs, friendly emojis under promotional posts, and what appeared to be cordial messages. "You called him a visionary in one post," Steele noted. "You liked a post of him dancing with his daughters. Were those also out of fear?" Jane paused. "Yes. You don't stop performing when the curtain closes," she said. "You keep smiling. You keep pretending, because you know someone is still watching." The courtroom was silent. In an unexpected move, Steele introduced a former email chain between Jane and another staff member, in which she seemed enthusiastic about attending a Revolt Films event. The same week, she claimed emotional breakdowns were occurring behind the scenes. But prosecutors objected, calling the email misleadingly edited. The judge sustained, and the line of questioning was dropped. Then came the most controversial moment of the cross-examination. Steele asked whether Jane had ever received any financial settlement or offers from media outlets in connection to her story. Jane answered, no. But the defense hinted that some form of documentary production or collaboration may be underway. Prosecutors immediately objected, calling the question speculative and an attempt to discredit a victim by insinuating opportunism. Again, the objection was sustained. Steele, now walking a fine line, wrapped up the cross by reiterating that Jane's testimony lacked contemporaneous documentation, included no formal complaint records, and was based on memory from nearly a decade ago. But Jane's final statement may have resonated more than any objection. "You want to know why I didn't come forward sooner?" she said, turning to the jury. "Because I didn't think anyone would listen, and honestly, I still don't know if anyone is." With that, Judge Walton called for recess. The air in the room was heavy, but not with the chaos of past days. This was the weight of a silent war between lived trauma and legal skepticism. Outside the courthouse, victims' rights groups held signs in support of Jane. Inside, prosecutors prepared to move forward with forensic digital evidence, potentially linking Combs' communications and transactions to patterns already laid out in testimony. And as for Jane Doe, she stepped off the stand, not with dramatic exit, but with the weary look of someone who had just survived a courtroom battle where truth is always forced to wear armor.
No witnesses took the stand. No outbursts rattled the courtroom. Yet somehow, Day 16 of the federal trial against Sean Diddy Combs delivered some of the most chilling revelations yet. All without a single spoken word. Because on this day, it was the devices that testified. Federal agents from the Department of Homeland Security's Digital Forensics Unit presented a series of exhibits extracted from phones, hard drives, and cloud backups belonging to Combs, Christina Kuram, and other key individuals in the investigation. The goal? To prove that even when no one was looking, Combs was orchestrating what prosecutors allege was a coordinated criminal enterprise. The jury was shown a secure slideshow of time-stamped text messages, call logs, and encrypted communication logs, all verified by metadata. Among the most damning pieces of evidence was a series of messages from Combs to Kuram in the aftermath of the Cassie Hotel incident in 2016. In one text, sent just hours after surveillance footage allegedly showed Combs assaulting Cassie Ventura in a hotel lobby, he wrote, "Make sure that fucking tape disappears. Eddie knows what to do. Lock it down." Another message, recovered from a secure messaging app, read, "Tell Cassie it's handled. No press, no cops. I'll do the rest." The digital forensics team explained that although Combs used apps with auto-delete features, partial recoveries were possible due to backups stored on an iCloud account linked to a corporate device registered under one of his LLCs. A third message, this one a voice memo file, appeared to be directed at an unnamed bodyguard. The transcript read, "You don't let Shako slip. Not with her, not with anyone. We don't negotiate with silence. We erase it." The agents further showed that Combs maintained a rotating list of staff NDAs stored in a password-protected document titled PR Control. The file included not only names and dates, but notes beside certain employees' names indicating high risk, vocal, or watched. Among the names listed, Mia, Jane, and Christina Kuram herself. The prosecution then introduced a GPS metadata record from a phone used by Christina Kuram, placing her at the Intercontinental Hotel at exactly 1:43 a.m. on March 6, 2016. Just hours after Eddie Garcia testified, she picked up the flash drive containing the assault footage. The defense had argued earlier that Kuram wasn't present. This record contradicted that claim. Also introduced, financial transaction screenshots showing real-time notifications to Combs's phone for withdrawals made by Bill M. and E. Garcia, referencing the same $100,000 withdrawal that Eddie Garcia previously described receiving in cash. "This is the connective tissue," said Assistant U.S. Attorney Mary Slavic. "This isn't he said, she said. This is timestamps. This is digital paper trails. This is control." In response, the defense objected to several messages as lacking context, arguing that the full threads were not always visible, and some content was open to interpretation. They also raised privacy concerns over the seizure of third-party devices, particularly Kuram's. Judge Walton allowed all admitted exhibits to remain in evidence, stating, "The jury is capable of determining credibility and weight based on the totality of the case." Perhaps most shocking was a note extracted from the Notes app on Combs's personal iPad. Dated months after Cassie left Revolt Films, it read, "Control your narrative or they will. Keep birthdays public. Keep enemies quiet." To the prosecution, this entry was less a business motto and more a window into Combs's mindset, one of image management through silence, manipulation, and, when necessary, money. The jury was left in silence as the final digital slide showed a deleted draft email from Christina Coram's account, subject line, "For internal use only, incident file closed." No one had to say it aloud, but the implication was clear. Tomorrow, the courtroom expects to hear from a witness who has remained hidden until now, one of Combs's former House staffers, who claims to have seen more than just text messages. The digital evidence spoke. Now, the humans return.